Good evening, good evening, good evening, ladies. How are you this evening? So welcome to Menopause Mindset Monday. My name's Sally Garozzo, and this is the place where we explore topics related to the perimenopause in all of its colours and all of its variations. So menopause itself does not have a good rap, does it? And that's because of the lack of education around it. So I am really passionate about helping women to understand it better, helping women to understand that it's not all doom and gloom, because the more that you know, the easier this transition gets. Hi everyone that's watching. Hi Kaya. Hi Sarah. I haven't seen you for ages. How are you? Hi Laura. Okay, so if you are one of those women, and if you're in this group, you probably are, if you're one of those women who like to take responsibility and who are, when I say take responsibility, I mean responsibility for your health and your well-being. And if you're ready to make a commitment to make this menopausal transition, hey Paula, a really good time, an enlightening time, a time that is light bulb moments going off left, right and centre, then I'm for you, this group is for you, and we are going to be good friends. So thank you so much for joining me this evening, everyone. If you're watching, say hi. I know you have already, some of you. And remember to ask questions, get involved, leave a comment. I will always answer them. And, if you have a burning question, speak up, because it might actually be another woman's question as well. So no question is too silly, too small or too big. So please watch until the end. I'm saving my best insights until last. So that's your cue to stay watch till the end. All right, so today's talk is called How to Put the Magic, the Sparkle, the Va-Va-Voom, how to put it back into your relationships. So this is for you if you feel a bit disconnected from your partner and you're not quite sure how to reignite the flame. This is for you if you're not even sure why you should reignite the flame. And let me tell you, there are plenty of good reasons to reignite the flame. And this is for you if your libido has dropped somewhat because of perimenopause and the hormonal fluctuations, and you just think there's no point in me even trying. I'm not going to get it back. I'm just going to settle for a life that is on this kind of low hum. And that was me for a while. I just thought, why do I need to bother? I feel okay. I don't feel great, but I feel okay. I'm okay not having sex. I'm okay sort of just plodding along. But really, I wasn't. And I'll tell you more about that later. So if you've watched me before, then you will know that I like to think of menopause as having three pillars: health, relationships and career well-being. And obviously this week I'm talking about relationships. So we're talking about pillar number 2 this week, because here's the thing: if you don't have a safe and passionate relationship, I like to talk about safe and passionate relationships, then you're missing out. You really are, because menopause increases your stress levels, and when you have a passionate relationship and a safe relationship, that really helps to level out those hormones. Because, too much stress, not all work and no play, too much stress and no pleasure, it's not going to help. It's going to make the stress worse. So this is why I wanted to address the fact that this is a menopausal issue. All right, it's not just a random issue that I've picked. It is a perimenopause issue. I'll just leave that one in there. So what is it? What happens at menopause that gets in the way of us enjoying a healthy sex life, va-va-voom with our partner, a magical relationship? So I've come up with 3. If you've got any, then let me know. So number 1, because libido is definitely changing, lowering estrogen, lowering testosterone, especially lowering testosterone, reduces libido quite significantly. lowering estrogen also means that we get a bit of vaginal dryness, some women more so. Maybe you've been in a relationship for a long time and you're just not getting as turned on by your partner, so that's another reason why you get this vaginal dryness. I know this is like a bit of a taboo or sensitive issue, but I don't care. Let's talk about it. And with vaginal dryness, sex can be really painful and we don't look forward to it. Maybe we're a bit embarrassed about using lubrication, even though it's great and we should all be using it at menopause. And there's also issues around, prolapse. I don't want to scare the living daylights out of you. Please don't think that I'm saying this to scare you, but there are also issues with things kind of moving downwards. And often we can feel that, we don't want to have sex with our partner if there's an issue with the vagina. So, that's why it's a menopausal issue. And we often approach sex with trepidation. Number 2, at menopause or peri, our body image is changing. So we might not feel comfortable with how we've become, who we've become. Maybe our skin's sagging, maybe our muscle tone, we're losing muscle tone, we've got a bit of sarcopenia, things are going a bit south, maybe we've got more cellulite, maybe we've got that fat around the middle, which happens in menopause, and maybe we just don't feel sexy. And that means we can lose our confidence. So we're not going into our relationship with our significant other like we used to. Maybe in the beginning we were happy dancing around naked and flaunting it, but as we get older, as we get into perimenopause, maybe we don't feel as confident with our body image. Especially, if we're comparing ourselves to the young, hot things that are very visible on Facebook, on Instagram, on porn, whatever it is that we're watching, and not all vulvas have been snipped and tucked. Many of you will have seen the pictures of the different vulvas that exist, and maybe we have shame around that we are, things are moving a bit southward. So that's another reason why the relationship, the sex, the intimacy topic is a perimenopausal issue, because things are changing and we're not as confident as we used to be. Lucy, my darling, love you. Zalika, my trainer, love you. Michelle, love you. Anna, hi Anna. I've got so many lovely ladies watching tonight. And my third reason that this is a menopausal issue, because of the stress. So stress increases at menopause or perimenopause, and that does nothing for your libido. It does nothing for your ability to want, or your desire to want to connect with your partner. So, stress is a double-edged sword. Stress at menopause is worse, but stress also makes menopause worse. And stress and sex and connection just, one fights the other. But when we are feeling connected with our partner, it's actually a wonderful antidote to all of that stress as well. So pleasure helps balance those hormones. Hi, Melissa. So good sex, good intimacy, good relational connection with your partner, it's a body thing. It's definitely a body thing, and it's affected by the body fluctuations in menopause, but it's also a brain thing. And our brains are so affected by the perimenopause. And our brain is our biggest sex organ. So, in a moment, I'm going to give you my how to put the magic back in your relationship. But I just want to give this a little bit of context, and I want to share a little bit about my story with my relationship and how we sort of disconnected and reconnected, and how it is now, where we are now. So I've been in a relationship for nearly 9 years, and I'm getting married in April. We have had a lot of ups and downs in our relationship. You know, it started off like most relationships. We were really connected. We were really juicy. We loved each other. We knew we wanted to be with each other forever. And there was a lot there. And then over time, the disconnection happened. He ended up with a hypothyroid. He put loads of weight on, and he ended up going to college to train to become a nurse. He became very stressed, and I was very stressed as well because I was the main breadwinner. So there was a lot of challenges in the early part of our relationship, and there were some trust issues that came up as well with some financial stuff, which I won't go into. But there was definitely a lot really tugging at our relationship, and this was the first grown-up, proper, real, long-term relationship I had been in. I had typically jumped from relationship to relationship. So this has been my very first opportunity to do the hard work that mature relationships require if they're going to be sustainable, to do the deep inner clearing out of the childhood stuff. And this has been our biggest healer for both of us, is really working on our childhood shit, our childhood programming. Because I don't know if any of you have seen my post today about Harville Hendricks, who's a relationship counsellor. He says that your intimate relationships help you finish the business of childhood. You always meet a partner that is a reflection of some negative and positive, but mainly negative, aspect of your childhood. So, you know, Graham and I were in and out of power struggles all of the time, and we've been hot, we've been cold, we've been split up twice, and now thankfully we're sort of developing and cultivating a relationship where we've both committed to no negativity. And I'm really excited because in 3 weeks' time we're actually going on our first Tantra course as well. Lucy, you'll be proud of me for doing that. So there's definitely been a lot of on and off in our relationship, and perimenopause hitting that spot this year particularly definitely did not help our connection and our libido. And there's always things getting in the way, and I want you to tell me what your things are. What gets in the way of you connecting with your partner? So for us, it's Graham's a nurse, so he does a lot of shift work, and he also goes up north to see his kids. So there's a lot of time when we're not connecting. There's phones. You know, how easy is it just to get on your phone and actually not talk to each other? What else is there? There's, for us, you know, I always wanted more sex than he did, so my libido was much higher than his. And whenever he turned his back on me, I felt very rejected, which made me shut down and it made me sulk. But it also put pressure on him, and he didn't like that pressure, and so he ended up doing a shutting down maneuver as well. So, you know, there was this push me, pull you situation going on. Of course, stress gets in the way of you connecting. We think that there's so many things that are much more important than connecting with our beloved. And often really when we think about it, you know, those things aren't as important as our beloved, because actually if they weren't there, we would really, really miss them. And all of those other peripheral, superficial things wouldn't seem as important. So we do need to make time for this. We do need to put the list down for the sake of our health and for the sake of our happiness. But also the length of time that you've been in the relationship can have a massive impact on your relationship as well. So boredom can set in, and we know, I'm sure we've all experienced this when we've been with the same person for a long time and maybe they've become de-idealized, and the thing that you loved about them initially ends up sort of annoying you later on down the line. So we get resistant. We become resistant. We get resistant to anything. If we've been using it for a long period of time, we get insulin resistant because we've been exposed to insulin for long periods of time. We get resistant to cortisol. We can, if we've been exposed to a lot of cortisol, we can get resistant to that and it stops working as effectively. We get resistant to face creams. How many times have you been to Debenhams and been at the Clinique counter and they said, well, you need to change your face cream once every 6 months because your skin gets used to it. And that's actually true. We do. We get resistant. Supplements. We get resistant to supplements if we take them for, longer than a few months. So we do need to change things up. Exercise, we get resistant to that. The same exercise, if you do the same exercises for month in, month out, you're going to get used to them and you're going to not see the changes. So we do need to shift things up, move things around, and that's why people have affairs, right? Because they are looking for a way of putting the spark back into their life. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute. So here are my bite-sized steps for helping you to put the magic back into your relationships. I really want you to let me know what you think about these because one or two of them are a bit controversial. So here's the most controversial one. Number one. All right. Marissa Peer told me this once and I thought, I don't know how I feel about that, but I tried it and it kind of worked. So the advice is have sex even if you don't really want to. Now, of course, providing there are no deep underlying issues like, if your partner's an addict or he's not treating you very nicely or he's a narcissist, then obviously there's much deeper stuff that needs to be worked on. But if your guy is good and you just haven't had sex for a long time, just try doing it anyway. Now, what Marissa Peer says is just because you don't want to watch TV, it doesn't mean they shouldn't watch TV. Just because you're not hungry, it doesn't mean they shouldn't eat. Just because you don't want to go out in the sun doesn't mean they shouldn't go out in the sun. So I kind of get it when you say it like that. So denying your partner sex because you just don't feel like it is a kind of form of stonewalling. And stonewalling's not great for your relationship. Stonewalling leads to frustration, long-term resentment, shutting down, all of this stuff. It's better to try to be open. And most people do have to push themselves at first. But when you get going, you kind of get into it and it bonds you back. So it's one of those things, isn't it? I don't know if you've ever experienced the less sex you have, the less sex you want. Like the longer you've been without it, the more you don't miss it. And then you meet a guy, you have loads of sex with him, and then you're like, oh my God, I just want him all the time, and you can't get him out of your head. You can't scratch that itch. You can never satiate yourself. So that's the thing. If you've been in a relationship for a long time and maybe the sex has dwindled, it's like you just got to get back on that wagon. And once you start stimulating that point inside the G-spot or whatever it is, it's like a magic spot. Once it's been stimulated, then it kind of wakes up. So, yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the brain loves what is familiar. So I'm a hypnotherapist. So I love mindset. I love brain. I love patterns and habits and behaviors. So because your mind loves what is familiar, it will always take you to what is familiar. So if not having intimacy or sex with your partner is familiar, your mind will get used to that. So in order to make having sex with your partner familiar, there has to be a little bit of discomfort. You have to walk down discomfort street to get to the point where, you know, it's become a familiar pattern, a weekly pattern or bi-weekly or once every 2 weeks or whatever supports you. Interestingly enough, there was some men surveyed, I've got to try and remember this, that said they considered themselves to be in a sexless marriage if they were having sex once a month. Now, I don't know how you feel about that. For me, once a month is okay at this point in my life. It's not bad, but it's probably not good either. So, you know, perhaps we need to look at the frequency that works for us. Okay, who gave me a heart then? Thank you. Number 2 of how to put the magic back in your relationship. This is according to Esther Perel. So Esther Perel is an expert on why people have affairs. And as I said before, people have affairs because they are looking to put the magic back into their lives. But obviously we know that affairs can be really, really damaging. So it's best not to have them. No judgment at all. But it's best not to have them. So we need to find other ways of finding this excitement. So Esther Perel says, instead of opening up the relationship, open up the conversation. We all know that the biggest sex organ is the brain. So asking your partner if they would be open to talking about sex, to sitting down and having a conversation about sex, about their fantasies, about your sex life with no negativity. You have to commit to no negativity, not pushing blame, not pushing judgment onto the other person, but just being in your own sexual energy, right? So, for a relationship to be safe and passionate, there has to be a combination of 2 things. There has to be a combination of best friend chemistry and erotic mystery. And often we end up having too much of the best friend chemistry and not enough of the erotic mystery. So, how do we get into the erotic mystery? We have to really understand that we are responsible for our... So nobody owns your sexuality. Your partner doesn't own your sexuality. You don't own your partner's sexuality. You own your sexuality. And because you own your sexuality, you have your own fantasies, your own desires. And some of those your partner won't be aware of. And so drip feeding these fantasies to your partner is a really nice way of them finding out new things about you. So, other things that can help to... Because sometimes I don't think we know what we want ourselves in terms of pleasure or sexuality or desire. So it's important to look at what's out there, look at what's available. You know, I am a great believer in pornography. I think it's great. I think there's some great pornography out there that's female directed, that's not just, you know, wham bam thank you man, that's got a bit of a storyline. And you know, these images, erotic books, erotic novels, erotic audiobooks, they give us ideas. And we need to keep stimulating our ideas because variety is the spice of life. If things get too samey, we get resistant to them. So that's why we need variety in our lives. And often, I just want to add a little thing to this, is we have blocks around our own sexual desire. And for me, I know when I was in my 20s, I had no problem talking about sex. I had no problem shouting from the rooftops what I wanted. I was a real sexual goddess when I was younger. But as I started to hit peri and things started to change, and I'd been in a relationship for a long time, I started to develop shame around certain sexual desires, around certain body parts, around certain ideas, around being open about it. I became much more prudish. So me talking about this to you it's quite big. But I became quite, the shame started to come up. And so I get it. There may be some shame for you around this subject, and it's really worth looking at this, shining a little light. You know, you don't have to expose all of it in one go because it's quite painful, but to just acknowledge that there might be something there, and there might be something there for you to work on around it. Okay, number 3. So we've spoken quite a bit about sex, but I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and I'm going to say, if you can't work on the sex within your relationship, don't worry about it. Just work on the intimacy and connection first, and then sex hopefully will follow on. So what does this look like? What does intimacy and connection look like? Well, first of all, it looks like no negativity. So this is really hard not to be negative because, you know, how often do we do the quick tut, you know, and the huff or the eye roll or the just hit below the belt or a little barb to our partner that, you know, might seem harmless on the outside, but it's just chipping away at their sense of self-worth and their sense of confidence. So we really have to be careful, you know, when we are committing to improving our relationships for the sake of our menopause, we have to be careful with our words and our intentions. So, you know, if we can enable our partner to feel safe, then we have a really good chance of igniting the fireworks or igniting the flame. So it's always safety first, and then the passion can follow, unless you're really self-destructive and you need passion first and you don't care about safety, which I get it. I have been there myself. It had to all be about the passion. So what can we do to improve this intimacy then? Well, one of the ways is to look each other in the eye. You know, we've always got our head down looking at phones. How often do we just sit and look at our partner in the eye and just appreciate them and have this feeling of appreciation for them being in our lives? You know, looking into their eyes and acknowledging there is a soul behind those eyes. Oh, I'm getting a bit choked up. There's a soul behind those eyes, and if that soul weren't there in that body, what might we feel like without them? Eye gazing is wonderful. Touching, stroking, just gentle touch, hugging, cuddling, you know, it all increases testosterone. Oxytocin. My mind went somewhere else then. Cuddling, stroking, touch, you know, increasing that proprioceptive ability. Its touch is so important, especially as we get older, as we go into menopause. Soothing touch is going to help balance those stress hormones, going to help us feel good. If you don't have a partner, get some massage, get a tantric massage, just get regular massage. Nothing too deep. If it's too deep, it's going to set off the stress hormones again. It's not going to help your nervous system. So what we're looking at with intimacy and connection is really releasing and really smoothing out that nervous system so that our hormones can balance and our brain can feel more alive and more functional. Now, one of the things I read about 5 or 6 years ago, Naomi Wolf, I think it is Naomi Wolf, the feminist writer, she did a lot of research and she found that armpit smell from your partner, so your partner's armpit smell, significantly increases your fertility. So if you are in peri and you want to get pregnant, get a load of your partner's armpit smell. And I know for me, I love it. I absolutely love it. Please don't think I'm mad. I hope you don't think I'm mad. Please tell me you like it too. But it's just really connecting, really, really bonding, and just makes me feel super connected to my partner. So the other thing that we can do to increase our connection to our partner is snogging. How often do you snog your partner? So if you've been in a long-term relationship, it's the first thing that usually goes. And there's so many sensory organs around the lips and around the tongue that are connected to your vagina and vulva. So when you are snogging, you get wetter, don't you? And that is going to help lubrication, which is brilliant at menopause, peri, when we're a bit dry, when we're much drier. Snogging is great. It really helps you to connect. Even if it doesn't lead to sex, it's such a good idea to practice it because you get the eye-gazing factor as well. So just turn the TV off for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and try it out. Okay, so some of you might be thinking, I'm totally down with this, but my partner is not. My partner's blocked. He or she is just not open to any of this. I totally know where you are coming from, sisters. I really, really do. I've been there, and I am going to give you my bonus tip in a moment. And this is something that you can do to help your partner become more open and willing to embark on a journey of deep connection. But before I give you this tip, I want to tell you a little bit about me and about the work that I do, just in case this is something that you feel can really, really help you. So let me just have a swig. So, for those of you who don't know me, and I know there's a few new people watching tonight, I'm a rapid transformational therapist and a well-being coach with an avid interest in the perimenopause. And so what I do is I help people change their past programming from childhood that's holding them back from having wonderful, magical, open, intimate relationships. And I do this using the power of the subconscious mind. So, rewiring your mind for safe and passionate relationships that are not being triggered by the past, these past childhood wounds, is absolutely accelerated through this wonderful, deep, transformational 2-hour process called RTT, done under hypnosis. Because it's done under hypnosis, it utilizes the phenomenal power of the subconscious mind. So what we do in RTT is we go back to scenes in your childhood where you might have picked up certain beliefs around yourself and around your relationships. So it's amazing that we subconsciously magnetize people, relationships into our existence that reflect the type of relationships that we had with our parents. And at perimenopause, we are doing a lot of life laundry, and relationships is not excluded from that. So usually the pain in these relationships tends to come to the surface at this time, and it's an invitation to work out what has been your part to play in it all. So when you were a kid or a child, you might have picked up a belief that said, no man can match up to my dad. No man is ever going to be good enough for me because my dad was my hero, and that's that. So you go from relationship to relationship, finding out or trying to find a perfect carbon copy of your dad. But of course, that's not going to exist. Maybe you've got a belief that I must fix my partner in order to fix my relationship with my mum or my dad. And interestingly, Graham is very much like my mum, and I used to kind of hero worship my dad. So throughout the early part of my relationship with Graham, I used to try to make him more like my dad. I was very unsatisfied with him. Anyway, that's a whole other story. So maybe you had a belief, maybe you picked up a belief that you can't be yourself in relationships. Maybe your parents didn't see the real you, and you ended up with a belief that said the real you, the real me is not good enough, the real me can't be seen, the real me is flawed. Maybe you ended up with a belief that said no one is ever perfect enough for me, no one's, or I'm not perfect enough for anyone. Maybe you ended up with a belief that said love is not available, I have to earn love, love is difficult. You know, I had the opposite belief. I had a belief that said, I don't need to earn love because love was always there. You know, I used to treat my mum and dad quite badly on some occasions, but they would always be there. I was a bit spoiled. And so that is why I ended up treating Graham quite badly in the early stages. But, you know, RTT really helped me. It enabled me to really understand what was going on, what pattern, what process was I engaged in that was keeping my relationship stuck, traumatic, in a power struggle, and just in a place where we could not move forward. So when you have RTT and you go back and you look at these scenes under hypnosis, you get big clarity moments, big light bulb moments. And then because we're in hypnosis, we also get an emotional reaction to it as well. And when we are emotionally fired up, that's when we get the impetus to change. Excuse me. So, utilizing this powerful state of mind, we can then change the meaning that you attached to those scenes that your subconscious mind has come up with. And, you know, Marissa Peer says it's not the memory that's had the effect on you, it's the meaning that you have attached to the memory. And then we can start to rewire, rechange, reprogram, reframe your memories under hypnosis so that you can put a new meaning on the memory. To be honest with you, RTT has been one of the most transformational tools I've come across for me personally, but I've been doing it for I've been doing it for over 3 years now, and every day I'm seeing the unique and powerful transformations that my clients are getting. It just keeps blowing me away every single day. So it's really powerful. It can be done via Zoom. It can be done with me in person. And the good news is I don't just give you the RTT session and you walk out of here. You are connected to me for a whole month. So we stay in contact via WhatsApp. Oh, you also get a recording that you must listen to for 30 days. And that recording, I record that especially for you based on the findings of our session. And that will absolutely rewire your mind for success in whatever area you've chosen to come and get help in. And that's what most people say is the brilliant thing about RTT is the recording. You know, you go and have counselling or psychotherapy or other hypnotherapy sessions, and the therapist will not like you recording in their session, but we advocate it because it's so powerful, it's so transformational, and it really works to rewire those neurons over the 30 days afterwards. You also get 2 follow-up coaching calls with me as well. So it's not just one session and then you're left. It's like working with me for a whole month. So most people only require 1 session, but some people do need more. Obviously, it depends how deep the roots go. So in the name of transparency, I'm all about transparency. I charge £347 for working with me for a month, and that includes everything. So if you think that RTT might be something that you want to have a go at, you can drop me a direct message. You can go onto my website, which is sallygarozzo.com, or send me an email, which is info@sallygarozzo.com. Okay. So So I'm going to give you my bonus tip in a minute. Excuse me, I'm very itchy and fidgety tonight. So I'm going to give you my bonus tip, but let's just have a quick recap. So my 3 hows, how to put the magic back in your relationship. Have sex even if you don't want to. If it's been a while, it's going to feel tricky at first, but you can do this. Turn on your imagination, put some lube on, get your imagination going and just go for it. Number 2, open up the conversation, not necessarily the relationship. Talk, 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 communicate. Your brain is your biggest sex organ. Number 3, work on your intimacy and connection first, and the sex will feel much more natural. And this means no negativity. Also, things like going on date night and scheduling in special time just for yourself can really help as well. Some men find it a bit pressurized, but I'm going to give you my tip now to help you soften your man and help him. I'm presuming we're all in heterosexual relationships, which is wrong of me to assume that, I know. And this kind of male-female dynamic that I'm talking about kind of works in same-sex relationships, because usually there is one partner that is more has a more masculine energy and one that has more feminine energy. Not always. I'm not sure how it works if both people have the same amounts of masculine and feminine. Maybe someone could come and educate me on that. But you know what I mean. Where was I? So this is what I said, that you might be thinking, well, I'm totally down with all these hows, but my partner's blocked, okay, and they're not open to any of this. So I have a tip for that, and here it is. Don't make your partner redundant, okay? So as women, as proactive women, we tend to feel like we need to be superhuman and do everything and take on the weight of the world. Maybe we're doing the laundry, maybe we're organising the meals, maybe we're building careers, maybe we're looking after the kids, going to the gym, getting our hair done, our nails done, organising the travel, organising the car, remodelling the house, just taking on everything. Maybe that's what we're doing. When you do that, you don't leave any space for your partner to feel useful. When you put your man down, when you do the eye roll thing, when you do the little tut of disapproval, when you make fun of him, he is going to start feeling shut down. He is going to start feeling emasculated. Because, here's the thing, men, or masculine women, they need to feel useful. They need to feel important. They need to feel respected. So women need to feel desired and men need to feel respected and important and valued. So if you are trying to take on everything yourself and you are controlling and you are not letting go and you are nitpicking and you are henpecking and you're always at your man, they're going to feel useless. They're going to feel undervalued. You know, women do tend to get to things first. Or if that's you, if you are that person that tends to get to things first or tends to see the negative in everything, how do you think that's going to make your man feel or your partner feel? It's going to make them feel emasculated. It's going to make them feel less than. It's going to make them feel like they can't do anything to make you happy. So what do? They shut down, they cower into a corner, they look at their phone, they flick on the TV and they watch their war films, knowing that you're not going to be interested in that. So if a man feels useless, if they feel undervalued, if they feel emasculated, they are not going to want to work on the relationship because their self-esteem's been dented, they've been wounded deep down on the inside. They're just not going to feel like they can contribute. Maybe they feel ashamed of themselves, that they can't, excuse me, live up to your standards for them. So that last bit really is the work of Laura Doyle in The Surrendered Wife. So if any of you feel like that could be an issue in your relationship, it's definitely worth looking at. I know that for me, it was absolutely my issue. And, you know, when I learned to surrender and let go and trust my man, I gently sort of put things in front of him. But, I used to come down on him like an absolute ton of bricks and sort of almost force him to try tantra or try to better himself. And of course, it never worked. But over the last 2 years, I've been backing off and surrendering and accepting and just being generally loving and generally nice. He has responded much better. You know, he's reading Brené Brown, he's reading Jordan Peterson, he's watching Abraham Hicks. So he's starting to open up, but he's doing it in his own time. So people do. If you back off, they will come to it in their own time, and it'll be wonderful. It will be worth the wait. That much I promise you. Okay, that is all for now. I'm done. That's all I've got on this subject for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed this live. Do leave a comment if you're watching the replay, or if you've got a question and maybe you don't want to do it in public, send me in a direct message. I'll be happy to answer you. Thank you so much for watching. I've really enjoyed creating this for you tonight, and I'll see you next Monday.